Isla Blatchford.
BBC Guernsey.
My next guest has written a book. It's called The Invisible Hand, and it's the account of how he, as a stressed-out, driven entrepreneur, had an out-of-the-blue spiritual experience, which then set off a series of profound, life-changing experiences. Let me read you just a very small section of the book. I did not seek change. Change came to me. I did not seek spirituality. Spirituality came to me. I did seek material success. Material success came to me. But how? I hear you asking. Well, the man himself here to explain. Good morning, David Green.
Good morning, Isla. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate your time. I think first off, we need to hear about this life-changing, out-of-the-blue experience that you had. Tell me a bit about it.
Sure. Well, I was 31. I was running a business. I was working hard and playing hard. And then I saw a charity walk, which I thought I would train for. And I hadn't played sport for many years. And I started to train as I used to. And then after a few days of training, my back went. And when I'd had that injury before, I was a year out. I couldn't sit down for a year, had physio almost 3 times a week for a year. So when the injury came again, I was a bit like Quasimodo, bent over in pain. And I thought, oh, it's come again. And a friend of mine who had gone on this, what I call wacky new age path, which I wasn't interested in, he said, you want me to do some healing on your back? And I said, no problem, I don't believe in it, but go ahead. So he stood behind me for 10 minutes. I felt a little heat. And then we had dinner, I went to bed. And the next morning I could stand up straight.
And what did you put that down to straight away? I mean, what did you think when you woke up the next morning and you were able to stand up? Did you think, he must have done something?
I thought, what had happened to me? I think what it showed is that belief is good, but there's something beyond belief. And so then I thought, oh, I bet I can do that. And I felt energy in my hands almost immediately.
So how did you go? Because you were very sceptical about this, weren't
Yes.
you? So how did you go in that change overnight? You know, obviously being out of pain gives you a whole new perspective on things, doesn't it? But how did you go from being a sceptical person to believing that there was something more powerful within you?
Well, I think it shows that if you have an experience that comes out of the blue, as I did, then suddenly it makes you stop and think, oh, maybe there's something else.
Did you think maybe there is a God?
Yeah, I'd never really contemplated much about it. I was too busy. But then I thought something had happened to me, and I was feeling this energy in my hands and some heat. And I thought, this is not imagination. And as it continued for months, I thought, this is definitely not imagination. What is it?
So how did you come to a decision about what it was? Have you decided what it is?
Well, I called my book The Invisible Hand, which is another word for God, or some people call the universe. And I think what I've found is that within all of us is good. And I think all religions are really saying the same thing. We should be good to ourselves and others. And if you have an experience like I did, then suddenly I was taken on a path. I went to Egypt, I went to Tibet, and then I started to meditate.
So you weren't, from what I've read about you, you weren't a religious person. You were agnostic, were you, before this happened? Yes,
I think that's fair to say.
So how would you describe yourself now?
Well, I do believe there is God, but I don't believe that the only path to God is through religion. And I think God you can call the invisible hand or the universe. And I think there's a spark of divinity within all of us. But we're all so busy that perhaps we don't always realise it.
So this life-changing moment, what did you say it took you on? It took you to different places.
Yes.
But how did it completely transform your life? I mean, what changed from that day forward? Well,
what changed? Firstly, my diet changed. I was a carnivore. I drank. And suddenly, naturally, I didn't feel the desire to eat meat. And slowly I became vegetarian. And then I stopped drinking alcohol. And this was natural. It wasn't I should stop. It was just a natural change within me.
It's easier when it becomes a natural change, isn't it? When you try and force yourself to do these things, it's not very effective.
Absolutely. But having said that, I mean, I think to change our habits, if we introduce good habits in our life, then that's a good way to start.
And meditation, you say, has become a big part of your life.
Yes, this happened to me 18 years ago when I started to meditate. And I found that the slower the breath, the slower the mind.
So what do you want to achieve with your book, The Invisible Hand? Show people that there is something within them to make these changes, to put some time aside to meditate each day. What was it about writing the book?
Well, I was inspired to write the book by some Indian gurus that I met. I met a 91-year-old guru from India who taught me how to meditate, and his successor encouraged me to write the book, which I started 4 years ago.
I like the idea of meditation, but I wouldn't know what do you have to do in meditation?
Well,
just sit quietly.
There's many forms of meditation. One of the simple ways is to observe your breath. So the yogi will breathe in and out of the nostrils. In fact, many yogis believe that our life is determined by the number of breaths. So if we're very active, if we get angry, our breath increases to about 40 breaths a minute. Whereas if we're calm, our breath will be 15 breaths a minute or even less. So we should take care of our breath.
Now I'm watching how I'm breathing. I'm thinking,
that's good.
Isla, stop breathing so fast. You're only 30. Oh, I'm 34. I'm sort of wishing away a year or getting myself one back. So, okay, that's interesting. So, what point did you discover meditation then, from your out of the blue experience?
Well, I was taken on a path of experimenting with different types of meditation. But a few years later, I met this 91-year-old guru who practiced a meditation technique called Kriya Yoga. And it's not a yoga as you would imagine, that you have to go to a class and look very nice and sit in a cross-legged position. It's a yoga that you can practice in your clothes from 5 minutes a day to more than an hour a day. So he taught me this authentic technique, and this technique was taught to Gandhi, and he also taught this to Mother Teresa.
Wow. That in itself must have had quite a profound effect, to be learning it from someone like that.
Absolutely. And what I felt when I met this master was I felt this unconditional love pouring at me, which was an unusual experience.
Do you think that your experience just opened you up to the possibilities? Do you think that, for most of us, we're maybe a bit closed off to those experiences and those possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, I always believed, because I was ambitious and wanted to succeed in business, so I always believed that everything was possible, although I didn't always know how to do it. And I think what the change in me, it encouraged my business success, certainly, and it gave me more calmness. And if we all just spend 1% of our day meditating, then we'll tap into our intuition, which actually helps us in our life, whether you're in business, whether you're being a mum, whether you're trying to bake a good cake. If we concentrate more, then we tune into more success.
Because you say this happened to you when you were 31.
Yes.
And you managed to retire quite early, didn't you?
I was very lucky.
Yeah.
I did work quite hard though as well.
So it didn't, although it changed you in some ways, it also helped you in what you were already doing, which I guess is the material success that you wrote about.
Yes. I mean, I was always in finance and trading and merchant banking, and it just developed more within me, and then as the concentration increased, the success increased. But I became more conscious of what was around me, and what was happening around me within, meeting people.
What about friends and family? What was their reaction to your experience and the change in you as well? I
think they were a bit surprised, as I was.
Do you find people are quite sceptical though? Because I'm generally, in lots of things, quite a sceptical person, I suppose, and I probably wouldn't open myself up to lots of different possibilities. Although I like the idea, I'm probably too sceptical to try in some cases, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I was extremely cynical, so if it happened to someone like me, it can happen to you. And I think that if you experience some calmness through meditation, then you don't have to have a belief. It doesn't matter if you're cynical, because you'll go by your experience. And many people practice meditation, and it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your profession, and the good thing is it doesn't matter what you believe.
So what about tips then for someone from your book, obviously, very profound change to you. Do you have tips for people that you can pass on from your own personal experience?
Yeah, I think have faith in yourself, be courageous, and keep going. Don't give up.
How did it feel when you had your book there, finished, published, printed in your hands? How did that feel?
It was really like the birth of a baby, because I spent 4 years full time writing the book. It would have helped had I kept a diary.
So anyone that's about to this is about to
yes, keep a diary.
Okay.
What was interesting, I got a professional editor in London, a guy called Carl French, and he was a journalist at the FT for many years, and he was totally agnostic, which is why I chose him to edit the book. And he's now started to meditate after reading the book. So I had a lot of help along the way. And yeah, it's an interesting experience, because when you write a book, suddenly half of the book is now the reader's book, so they are entitled to give their opinion.
Yeah, and that opinion's on you and your life and your experience.
Absolutely.
So are you prepared for feedback then on that?
Well, so far, I'm glad to say on Amazon I've had lots of 5-star reviews.
So it's positive so far.
So far, so good.
It must be, especially when you put something out there that is such a personal experience to you as well, though. It must be a little bit nerve-wracking about the kind of reception that you will get from people. Yeah,
well, I think people will read, I hope, a message that if we keep going, we're all spiritual. So if you're running a business, a good business succeeds because you care for your clients and you care for your staff. So actually spirituality is all around us. We don't have to be religious to do that or even meditate. But it's just becoming more conscious and aware of that.
Do you think, though, that the association of spirituality is religion for some people?
Well, I think you can be spiritual but not religious, and you could also be religious and not spiritual. I think it's wonderful if people find peace through religion, but that's not for everybody. Calmness is godliness. So I think if people are following their religion and they sincerely love others, whether they follow their religion or not, then I think that's wonderful.
How did you find your new approach? Because obviously you stayed in business and you retired when you were 42, is that right? How did you find your kind of new, I suppose, calmer? Because before you were quite stressed out. How did you find that just generally went through business and life in general? Was it everything just much improved to be calmer?
Well, I think if I go backwards slightly, as I worked, I was under greater and greater stress, as all of us are in our lives. And as I worked more and more, but I always meditated at least 15 minutes a day. And that was a bit like a rescue remedy. So, I read the other day that 50 million prescriptions are given out a year for antidepressants in the UK, which is an unbelievable figure. I don't know if it's absolutely correct. But it's a bit worrying that people are stressed and they're just being given pills. So going back to your question, yes, more calmness has come, no doubt through meditation, and it takes sincere practice. But I was very stressed out, and actually the best people to meditate are the most stressed out.
I suppose the most stressed out, you don't take much time to do anything to relax, really, do you, to calm down?
Yeah, well, I mean, how do you relieve your stress?
I exercise and also partake in a glass of wine on the odd occasion. I'm not sure I'm handling my stress very well. That's to be said. Oh, and occasionally lose my temper as well.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not so bad.
Maybe slam a door, have a cry.
That's all right.
I'm like a stroppy teenager still.
Yeah, I mean, everything's all right in moderation, isn't it? If we enjoy having a glass of wine, if we go to a nice restaurant, if we train. But it's when we do things at excess. And I think when a recession comes, as we've had, people are under enormous stress. And are they being relieved of that stress? So some people will go for help, so they may go to their doctor, or they may get some counselling, but stress is a big problem, and meditation is a beautiful answer, which is healthy for you.
Stress, I suppose, it has a huge impact on people's lives as well, health-wise.
Yes.
In fact, later on we're talking about couples struggling to conceive, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very stressful
Sure.
time of life, I'm sure. And I guess anything you can do to try and alleviate some of the stress must help.
Yeah, well, I think if you contemplate what is our true nature, is it to be calm and relaxed, or is it to be stressed? So I think meditation helps you remind yourself that our true nature is to be calm. And when we're calm, we make better decisions in life, and we're more balanced. And as you say, for the health, it must be good to be more calm.
Do you know, you're having a very calming effect on me this morning.
Good.
Do other people tell you that? You've got a lovely way, it's just the way you're speaking. You're just very calm.
Good. Well, it wasn't always like that, so there's hope yet for everybody.
Okay. It'd be interesting to go back in time and meet David Green from
Yes.
18 years ago.
Absolutely.
To see the comparison. And so your book is out now.
Yes, it's locally it's available in Guernsey Press. It's available online through Amazon.
All the usual ways
sources.
of getting it.
Yes.
Oh, well, best of luck with it. And thank you so much. Really interesting to talk to you this morning. And meditation. I've done a few interviews now on the programme about meditation and other kind of, I suppose, spiritual techniques, for want of a better word.
Yes.
And it always interests me. And you know what? I never set aside the time to actually investigate any further. And I bet there's a lot of people like me who the idea appeals to, because wouldn't we all like to be calm and not stressed?
Well, I can tell you something very simple to do. If you close your eyes and just observe the breath coming in and out of the nostrils, and just observe it, don't control it, and don't worry about the thoughts. That's a very simple way to get a little bit of calmness.
Excellent. Thank you for that tip.
Thanks, Anna.
My guest, David Green, who has written the book The Invisible Hand. If you would like to get a copy of that, it is on sale in Guernsey, and you can also get it through online retailers as well. David, thank you.
Thank you.